Hello guys, today we are going to work with this incredibly resistant device Doogee S59 which doesn't charge. To check the consumption we are going to use the power set and as you can see it's got a regular charging. Sometimes we've got 0.4 amperes and suddenly it goes to 0. I would like to specify that's a very common failure with this device during the time we have repaired many of them. So let's start with the disassembly process. To remove some pressure off the screen, I prefer to remove the two metal sheets. We use a screwdriver Torx T5. Here we can see the exact measurement. This device has an IP68, which is the degree maximum protection when a mobile or another electronic device has in front of the axis of particles such as dust, liquids or water. After removing the 8 screws, we remove the two metal sheets, which function is to protect the sides. Now comes the most complicated part. We have to remove the screen. To remove the screen, we need to apply a lot of heat during 8 to 10 minutes. We use a hot air gun at 100 Celsius degrees, but you can also use the preheating station or the TBK 228. The trick is to insert a metal pick or the isesamo and pry right here in this area. Over the years, we've checked which is the best area to open this device. The truth is that cannot be appreciated, but I have to do it hard so I can introduce the tool. Now we can use a plastic pick to cut the adhesive. This sticker indicates us that the device was not opened before. We use a star screwdriver with these dimensions. I have more than 6 years working with the same screwdriver and the truth is I like to work with the same tools always. I don't like to change them. In the next step we remove all the screws and we also remove the battery connector and the screen connector. It's very important to don't forget to extract the SIM tray. We remove the middle casing using a metal pick. Now, here we have to be very careful. This proximity sensor is glued on the middle casing and it can be broken very easy. We remove the two screws and the flexes from the sub motherboard. You should be very careful also with the coaxial cable. We go to the microscope to check the charging connector. Let's zoom in to observe it better. Here we can see why the device sometimes is charging and another time it didn't. As you can see, the charging connector has a cold solder and as time passes it parts in half. So I'm going to solder it using a good solder lead. In the first step, we apply a bit of flux and we clean the old solder lead with the desoldering wick. We use the soldering iron at 350 Celsius degrees. If you have problems removing this solder lead, then you can apply some solder paste. In this way, we will lower the melting point and we can clean it much better. Once the old solder lead has been cleaned, we are going to place the new solder. To do it right, we have to warm up the two areas that we are going to join. We count up to 3 and then we apply the solder lead. 1, 2 and 3. Then we apply the solder lead. In the same way, we solder the two sides of the connector. We clean it with isopropyl alcohol and with a little cotton. To solder it, we use solder wire and a thick tip at 350 Celsius degrees. After that, we are going to use a thin tip and check the differences. Right now, we change the soldering iron using a thin tip. Soon, I'll explain you the differences. You can find this kind of repair on our website for a price of 59 euros. I think that's a fair price for our customer because during this repair we risk a rather expensive screen. We clean the flux using contact cleaner. When we use a thick tip, the soldering looks great. As it comes to a thick tip, the soldering iron expands very well the heat and the flux becomes liquid. So each pin takes the solder it needs, no more and no less. Instead, when we use a thin tip, we didn't heat very well the soldering surface, so the soldering result isn't perfect. Here we can observe it perfectly. In the right part where we use a thin tip, some pads have too much solder lead and other just a little. The problem is with the melting temperature. We haven't managed to distribute the heat well in the soldering surface. So, a thicker tip spreads better the temperature. In this way, the solder lead becomes very liquid and perfectly grips the soldering surface. We are going to remove the remaining solder lead and solder it well. If you like this type of content, please give it a strong like, share this tutorial, and I'll keep recording real repairs from our workshop. Thank you. The price for sale for this Doogee device is around 170 euros. I'll try to leave you on the description of this video some purchase links. This is the final result of our soldering process, strong and bright. On our website, we have all the tools that we use in our laboratory, so take a look. Let's assemble the device to check if we solved the fault. The device seems to be charging, but I don't like the amperage at all. 0.4 amperes, which is very little. We check if the screen is working well. Let's change the power supply. Now yes, we have 1.6 amperes, which is a normal charge for this device. I just want to remind you one thing, place well the proximity sensor, it's very easy to forget it. So guys, here's Leonardo, this was today's video, see you in the next one, all the best!